ask you, back in the 1980s, where do you think Punjab was in terms of wealth or in terms of income per capita when compared to the other states in the country? Do people know? Anyone? Okay, Punjab was the #1 state in the country. Back in the 1980s, Punjab was by far the richest state in the country, the state which created the most amount of wealth. And if I ask you the same question in terms of where is Punjab today, will someone be able to answer? We're all Punjabis here, someone should know. Okay, the answer is somewhere between 11th and 15th. Somewhere between 11th and 15th richest state in the country. And this number depends upon what data you look at, which year you look at, and whether you include union territories and smaller states in your comparison. That's a very steep decline, right? To go from being the richest state in the country to being 11th, 12th, 13th over a 20-year period is a very steep decline. Unfortunately, that's not the only thing which has declined in Punjab for people who live in Punjab. I think from where we were in the 1980s, there was a lot of pride in the state. There was a sense of identity in the state. I moved to the US in the late 1980s with my parents for a few years. And when people used to ask me, are you Indian? I would say, I'm an Indian, but I'm a Punjabi. Right? So you wanted to tell people that not only are you Indian, but you're Punjabi, because there was a pride attached to that. Today, as I've traveled across the state over the last 1.5, 2 years, spoken with people, spoken with youth, spoken with farmers, spoken with business persons, that pride doesn't exist as much anymore. I think there's a crisis of identity. Who are we as Indians? What is our place in India? What is our future? Are we growing? Are we growing when we can compare to the rest of the country? And I think that's a very difficult place to be in as a state and as a population. Now the question is, how did we get here? How did Punjab get to becoming the richest state in the country just 30-35 years after independence? And then after that, in the next 20-25 years, how did Punjab also manage to see this steep decline, and what can we learn from that? Over the next 5-7 minutes, I'm going to take you through a quick history walk, right? Punjab's history is obviously very rich. 500, 600, 700 years ago, you have to think that Punjab was the entry point of anyone who wanted to come into India, not by sea but by land. So whether it was the Turks, whether it was the Iranians, whether it was the Mongols, whether it was the Romans, everyone entered India through Punjab. That led to a very rich cultural context coming into Punjab. That led to a whole generations of, if you can imagine it, kings, warriors, queens, traders, artists, craftsmen, who all came through Punjab. And I think that leads to a very special culture in Punjab. That leads to a very special skill set in Punjab. Punjabis were always a little bit more ahead, a little bit more aware, a little bit more cosmopolitan, a little bit more educated in that respect, and potentially because of that history. And then about 500 years ago, the religion, Sikhism, such a beautiful religion, was actually established in Punjab with its tenets of service for the community, with its tenets of acceptance of everyone regardless of what religion and what race they come from, but also a lot of bravery, fighting for what is right, fighting for what is true. And that brought a set of cultural sort of tenets to the people of Punjab. And perhaps I think that is why during India's freedom movement, there's a lot of people, there's a lot of freedom fighters who came for Punjab, who are amongst the most celebrated in that freedom fight. I'll come very quickly to the current. After this, Punjab experienced partition. I think one of the most difficult things about the independence movement, the wounds of which and the pain of which I think one can still see in Punjab in many different places, but it also left a great sense of acceptance and courage in the people of Punjab. Punjab also saw another truncation of its state. When in the 1960s, the whole state was split into 3 states, Haryana, Himachal and Punjab, right? So the Punjab that we see today is actually a much, much, much smaller version of the Punjab which existed 100 years ago. But then where does all of this prosperity come from? I think right after independence, when people of India were free to do whatever they wanted to build whatever they wanted to, what did Punjab want to do? Punjabis were entrepreneurial. They had risk-taking ability. So in 1950s and 60s and 70s, while the rest of the country was looking for jobs, looking for government jobs, what did every Punjabi want to do? They wanted to set up a business. They wanted to actually create something. They wanted to invest. They wanted to create jobs. They wanted to innovate. And that is why in 16s and 70s, Punjab came to be known as the land of entrepreneurship, the land of small and medium industry. We had textiles in Ludhiana, which came to be known as the Manchester of India. We had Jalandhar making sports goods, apparently still makes a large percentage of all of the footballs made anywhere in the world. We had the hand tools industry, the farm equipment industry, a lot of business. So that became a huge growth engine for the state. And the other growth engine was, of course, the Green Revolution. In the 1960s, when India as a country was facing mass starvation, there were ships coming to India's shores, carrying rice and wheat, feeding everyone. And people like Dr. Swaminathan said, we need a green revolution in the country. Seeds of wheat were brought in from Mexico and seeds of rice were brought in for Philippines. What was the state which actually took to that and decided to create a revolution out of it? It was Punjab and of course Haryana, this part of the country, right? That didn't happen by serendipity. It was the scientists in Punjab Agriculture University, it was the farmers all over Punjab, it was the government which set up procurement systems, and that didn't happen overnight. For 10 years, a lot of hard work, a lot of innovation in the science labs and in the fields of Punjab happened. So that's what we had. If you can imagine the Punjab of 60s and 70s, there were these two huge growth engines which were running through Punjab. One was business, industry, and the other one was agricultural revolution. And thus, when we landed in the 80s, we see a state which is far richer, far more prosperous, far more ahead of every other state in the country. Right? And then what happened? For all of you here who are from Punjab, of course, 1980s was also the decade of extremism, of terrorism. For a whole decade, majority of the state bandwidth, state public money, government bandwidth was just spent in thinking about how do we manage for the security of the state. Investment stopped coming in. Business obviously had a hard time growing given the political and the security situation of the state. On the heels of that, we had economic liberalization in India in 1991, which perhaps was Punjab was poorly placed to deal with because we weren't as cost competitive with the imports which were coming in, which we weren't as cost competitive with China. And then later on, of course, a few years later, the Pakistan border closed for trade and that impacted growth as well. So there were all of these external factors which started to happen after 1985, well into the 90s, which constrained Punjab's growth. And I think, to be fair, our industry, our business, our agriculture couldn't keep pace with that, couldn't deal with that adversity, right? And that is where Punjab is landing today. If you look at Punjab, where does that despondence come from? There isn't enough job growth. People are migrating outside of the state, outside of the country. There's a drugs problem. And then there is this genuine sense of, is the future really bright or was the past brighter? That's where we are. That's my learning of what Punjab is. But I genuinely don't think this is the end game for the state. I don't think this is where the story of Punjab lands. Because I think 500, 700 years of history of what has been woven into the fabric of the state cannot be wiped by just 20 years of adversity that the state has faced. So I'm going to borrow the words of Martin Luther King and say, I also have a dream for Punjab today, having spent time here for the last 2 years. And that dream for Punjab is to be a very prosperous state, to be the most prosperous state, to be the most cutting edge state going forward. And I genuinely think that's possible. And the reason why that's possible is because we still have a lot going on in Punjab. So if we look at industry, it's not just the entrepreneurial spirit. There are so many sectors where we have the expertise, we have the value chains, we have the supply chains, we have people who know those deeply. And I think bringing in a little bit more investment, bringing in the right set of supportive policies, bringing in a little bit more hard work, figuring out what is needed, I think industry in Punjab can be revived and can be made to be world class once again. In my vision for Punjab, I see agriculture going through another transformation. We can give it another name. Green revolution becomes gold revolution. I don't know. Just like in the 1960s and 70s, we brought in something from Mexico and something from Philippines and we indigenized it. I think we can go and learn from other places. Today, I don't know if you know this, but the productivity of tomatoes in Netherlands or any crop in Netherlands, for example, is not 10x or 100x, but is 1000x that of India. 1000x per acre. Right? So why is it that we can't go and learn from all of that? We know that Punjab has the ability to innovate. We know that we have the ability to bring in something from outside and indigenize it. It takes a little bit of effort, it takes a little bit of hard work, and it takes a lot of time, but it can be done. So in my vision of Punjab, agriculture in Punjab looks very, very different and becomes another engine of growth. In my vision of Punjab, I think we can take all of our culture, what we have, our food, our dances, our handicrafts, our art, our literature, our music, and serve it on a platter globally to bring in global tourism. Just earlier today, I was having a conversation about tourism in Pathankot and what is possible to bring in global tourism and integrate Punjab into the global economy. And in my vision of Punjab, cities like Mohali and Amritsar become amazing cities filled with startups, filled with technology, and filled with jobs. I don't think this vision is a pie in the sky. I genuinely believe it can actually be done. I think it needs an effort, like the effort that we all put in 60s and 70s, from the state, from the political leadership, from bureaucracy. We need a break from the past. We all need to be willing to work hard for not 5 years, but 10 or 15 years. But I think it genuinely is possible, and that's what I would like to see over the time to come. A few more things to say. I was expecting a lot of students in the audience. I think there are some in the back. To those young students, firstly, either you are from Punjab or you have the privilege to be in Punjab because you're in this amazing residential school. I would highly encourage each of the kids here to learn a little bit more about this amazing band that they're in, its history, its culture, its context, its evolution, because you'll learn a lot from that journey. And a few things that I hope the kids take away from today's conversation are, one, at a very early age, learn to be bold, learn to break the mold, learn to be innovative, just like Punjab did ahead of any other state in the country in the 60s and 70s. I want to say to you, learn to have perseverance. Success doesn't come in 6 months or 1 year. I know instant gratification is the name of the game today, but true success takes real hard work and comes over decades. So learn perseverance, just like Punjab did. And the one thing that I would want you to think about, which is something Punjab hasn't done so well so far, is don't rest on your laurels. When you climb one mountain, admire the view, but then find the next mountain to climb. Keep climbing, because that's how you change and that's how the world changes. Thank you very much for giving me this time. Such a pleasure.